I'd love to ask you more about your time at Firaxis and working on Civilization. And, I think there's a lot of people in the industry who would love to work at Firaxis. And, I'm wondering, did you manage to get much interaction with Sid Meier? How was that? How was it? Because you were there for about 13 years over 2 stints. If you don't mind, tell me more about your time there. What was good? What wasn't so good? And
yeah, well, I think Firaxis is one of the most wonderful places I've ever been. It's got a long history. I mean, it was a decade or more old when I started, more than that. And when I started, it was small. It was only about 60, 65 people on 2 teams. Like the first XCOM game was still being concepted at that point. It wasn't even released, and people weren't sure if it was going to work. Civilization is a long and venerable franchise with a really rich history, a very devoted fan base, and it's really kind of a designer's dream to work on that game because it's kind of an endlessly self-reinventing game. And I grew up playing Civs. I started with Civ 2 and played all of them. So in many ways, it was I couldn't have thought of a better job. There were opportunities along the way over the years to go do other things, and I always passed them by because I thought I can't think of a place I'd rather be than Firaxis. Sid is a really interesting sort of component of that because he is kind of the grandfather figure of the studio. I mean, he rewrote the original Civ. He co-founded the studio. He's been there forever. He sits kind of apart from day-to-day operations in most cases. He has a really unique role where he acts as a mentor to all the design teams, and you can just walk into his office at any point and sit down and just start talking through design challenges you're having. But he spends most of his time tinkering on his own prototypes, of which there have been dozens that I've seen over the years. That many of which are just thought experiments, or you never know if they're if they have the legs to be a full game. Some of them get further than others. But just by he's constantly just working through his creative impulses and does not, have to get bogged down in the, production realities of making a full production Civ. He just kind of contributes to it by influencing the mind of the designers and creative leads. And then he influences the whole studio in this kind of guru-ish way where people are always well, what's Sid up to today? And Sid will just show up at a company meeting with a new game and everyone will just play it and be like, wow, that's fascinating. And then go on about their regular day. So he's an absolutely lovely man and a pleasure to know, and I sometimes miss the opportunities I've had to talk with him. But the rest of the people in the studio were sort of equally kind of down to earth, very congenial. It had a very familial atmosphere of long veterancy. People know what they're doing. They understand the genre that they're working in and the games. It felt like a very professionally capable and chill place. In all the time I was there, barely any kind of drama that the game industry tends to suffer, things like shakeups or product struggles or layoffs or things like Firaxis somehow managed to just ride past those. I think the strength of the Civ franchise really buoys them and keeps the studio solid, but also keeps its kind of feet on the ground.